Yeah.
I got you.
All right.
Where's the main camera? Right there?
Yeah, this little green
cool.
dot.
Cool.
Okay. So, JT, you know a little bit about Python now from the last video that we made.
Yeah.
For Udacity. But today we're going to learn even more.
Excellent.
All right. So what we did was we wrote a program that basically checks a file, like a text file, and looks if it has any bad words in it. And then if it does, it alerts you. The whole point is like, say you're writing something, like writing an email to your boss, and you want to say like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Right. But you accidentally say, I'll give it a, because, you know, the I key is right next to the O key.
So give it a sh.
Right.
A sh. So basically it filters anything bad before it gets sent.
Right. It lets you know if you've made a mistake, then you can go back and check it. For our purposes to write it, we just did it based on a text file, like a .txt on the computer, but then we could adapt this to actually work with the email program or something like that. So you notice at the top, the first thing we do is import URL lib, which stands for URL library.
Yeah.
And do you remember what importing was from the last one? The last video that we did?
A little bit, yeah. It takes something from your computer and puts it onto Python. No?
Actually, yes, technically. It basically, when you're using Python, like right out of the box, it doesn't include everything that's part of Python.
Okay.
So on my computer, when I installed Python, I got everything. But when I write a program in Python, it doesn't include every possible function unless I explicitly include it.
Right.
So one of them is called URL lib, and that gives us a bunch of cool kind of like utilities that we can do to grab things from the internet by like entering a website address, a URL, and then doing something with it, like reading what it says or etc. So we imported that, and you'll see why later. So right up here we have this thing that says def read text, and def basically means define a function. Like, let's define a specific set of steps that we're going to reuse probably multiple times so that we don't have to write the same code over and over again.
Yeah.
And we can just call it anytime we want. So then I'm using we have this variable called quotes. You remember what a variable is?
Yeah, it's something that you can change these change parameters of to make it.
Yeah, it's like a stored value.
Right.
So you can say
the
like
on the last project was 0 for the breaks taken, and then 3 for
exactly.
Okay.
Right. So I'm setting a variable named quotes, and I'm setting it equal to all of this stuff, which is open and then all these things / whatever. So open is a function built into Python that opens a file on your computer. And I just so happen to have a file on my computer. This is like the full directory path to it, like from the root of the hard drive, how to get to it.
Right.
And it's like users and then me, and then I have this very long set of nested folders. And I have a file called moviequotes.txt, which is right here. And this is just a plain text file. Yeah, we've got...
I think it's excellent.
Yeah, Apollo 13, Forrest Gump, right, all the good ones. So I've basically told it, open this plain text file, and Python's smart enough to know how to find that file on my computer and then actually get the contents of it, which is everything here. If I scroll to the side, you'll notice that we have a bit of a typo here because it probably should have said this.
Right.
Right, but instead we accidentally did that. So we're opening that text file, and then I'm setting another variable that says contents of file, and it's equal to quotes.read. This is kind of an interesting concept for a beginner because I've made a variable named quotes, and it's equal to like the output of this function. that
Right.
open function. So now what I'm actually doing is setting another variable based on the first variable.
Yeah.
Kind of like saying,
It adds on to it.
yeah, so like if I were to say a equals 7 and then b equals a plus 3, that would mean that b equals
10.
Right, just like algebra. So here I'm saying contents of file, a new variable, that's equal to quotes up here, dot read. And dot read is kind of like open. It's a function.
Only
Python.
It doesn't open it, it just reads what's in there instead of opening it up.
Exactly.
Right.
So that means that contents of file is basically now, according to this program in Python, exactly equal to all this text. It knows where that file is, and it's like, okay, so now
it's readily accessible, right?
Exactly. Right here, this is not a big deal. This little octothorpe right here is a comment, and basically code, it doesn't get run. It stays in there as kind of like an annotation that you can write to your code. So I've commented that out because I was using that to test, like to see if it was actually getting the contents of the file. But right now I don't need it, so that's why I commented it out. So basically, when the code gets run, that line doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
it's just there as
a skipped over.
Exactly. So then I have quotes.close. This is kind of like a housekeeping thing with Python. Like, because I've opened a file, it's good to close it. I think for memory issues, like to not keep the file open in memory when you don't need it. So I've opened that file, got the contents of it, and then close the file, but I still have access to this variable, which has all of the text. And then here I'm running something called check profanity, which is a function. You can tell because it's got an argument in parentheses. Yeah. And I'm running check profanity on contents of file. So what does check profanity do? Well, guess what? It's the next definition.
Right.
In here, again, we're defining another method or function, and it accepts one parameter called an argument, meaning it accepts one input, which is text to check. So within this function, we have a new variable, connection. And connection is urllib.urlopen and this website. So remember we imported urllib?
Yeah.
Now we're using it. And we're basically saying that connection equals this website, this web address. But we're doing something interesting here. Because I didn't want to manually write a list of profanity, and try and guess all the combinations, I found out that Google made this thing called What Do You Love? And if we open that up, one second, in our browser, interesting service by Google where you can say like, I love airplanes, and it gives you all this information about airplanes, like find patents about airplanes. But most of it, the funny thing is, if you say I love something that's
profane,
not quite savory,
right,
it actually redirects you to kittens.
Well, I mean, those are way better than that 4-letter word you type in. So
yeah, I get
it. Like, that makes sense.
Yeah, we can say whatever, and it's like, no, kittens.
It's always kittens.
Yeah.
Is it really always kittens, though?
Yeah, like whatever profanity you use, it goes back to kittens.
Ah, man. What if you're allergic to cats? Maybe they can do dogs. Maybe puppies. I don't know. Yeah. It's just thought.
You know, we really are kind of at their mercy because they're a pretty powerful organization. Anyway, so we actually have access to the way that they filter profanity. And this is kind of like an Easter egg they put in. So we can take this URL and then pass it a parameter. We can say like, right here we say profanity. and then we
Yeah.
say q equals, and that's kind of like doing a search or like sending a bit of text to this web server, to this website.
It's like a feeler.
Right, and asking it for a response. So we can say q equals something bad, and notice it gives us a response true. We could say q equals kittens, and it says false.
Oh,
meaning,
wow.
I guess that's not
profane. Yeah, that's cool.
So we're basically going to piggyback off of that, because why would we write our own code when we have perfectly good code from Google that we can use for free? Yeah. So back to our code. So I'm doing URL open, which basically gets the response of that URL, which is just the same as us typing it into our browser. But we're doing q equals plus text to check, and that's our variable, which comes from the argument that we pass into check profanity. And the argument that we pass into check profanity ends up being contents of file.
Right.
And contents of file ends up being reading the quotes, and quotes ends up being that file.
Right.
So we can, it's
sort of all piggybacks back to the original.
It all traces back to that first, one of the first lines that we wrote. So basically we're saying, hey Google, is this profane? And this basically comes back to any part of our text file. Is any part of our text file profane?
Yeah.
Make sense so far?
Absolutely.
Cool. Then I'm making another variable called output, and that's connection.read. Kind of like how we did quotes.read for the file.
Yeah.
We can also use the URL lib to read the results of, or we can actually, we can read the results of the URL that we checked with URL lib, which would be this thing, like we were getting in the browser.
Yeah.
And again, I was using this for testing, but it's commented out, so it's not going to get evaluated.
Right.
And connection.close, just like quotes.close.
Yeah.
Housekeeping. If we opened it, we might as well close it. So then, this is our logic, our main logic. So we have if true in output. If and in are both Python keywords, so they have kind of a special meaning, like Python knows what we're trying to say. So if is
rough draft.
If something is true.
Okay.
And then in is basically saying if something is true in whatever we give it, which is output.
So yeah.
Right.
Which is X equals Y.
Right.
X in okay, it makes sense.
And because we have quotes around here, we're looking for the literal word true. So we're saying if it is true that the literal word true
that only actually works if you're using that that Google platform.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes sense for this code with what you're trying to do, because you already have code saying whether or not it's profane.
Yeah,
if it's true, it's profane. False, it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So if we were using another service where instead of saying true like Google does, they said affirmative, then we would have to put affirmative, right?
Okay.
So we're saying if it is true that the word true is in our output, which remember is that web page we got where we're checking Google for the profanity, then print out to the screen when we run it, profanity alert. Right. Then we'll know, oops, we should probably fix something.
Right.
Or maybe we mean to be profane and we'll be happy in our accomplishment.
Wonderful.
Yeah, whatever.
Either way.
Then we have Elif, which is actually a Turkish feminine first name, but in Python, it is basically saying else if. It's kind of like a short term. So we say if true exists in our output from Google, then print out profanity alert. Otherwise, else if, false exists in our output, then print out this document has no curse words.
So you can kind of trick the computer a little bit, or trick the program.
How so?
Well, if it says otherwise, okay, no, I get what you're saying. I'm sorry. I thought that you meant like if there was if there was profanity and you use that code, that you could process it saying it's clean.
Oh, no.
Does that make sense?
I mean, we could do that, but that would
no, that's not the code.
Yeah,
that's not the code you wrote. Right. I misunderstood.
So. No worries. So what we're saying here is, otherwise, if our response from the Google site contains false, like it did for kittens, meaning it's not profane, then print this out. Then we're basically doing a catch-all, like if for whatever reason neither of those things worked, like if we accidentally,
it's like a safety net.
Yeah, I don't know how we could mangle this up, but maybe we could do. No, I don't know, if something insane happened and.
Pussy. It's kind of a kitten. It's kind of a curse word.
Well, yeah, true. We got true. That's interesting.
Okay.
But if something were to happen and, like, instead of giving us a response true, maybe Google changed their code or something, and we ended up getting, like, say Google changed their code and we ended up getting affirmative, and we didn't get true or false, then we go, oops, could not scan the document properly. And that's just kind of like
catching it before it hits the page.
Yeah. Instead, the user would see some kind of like weird error from Python, like stack trace, blah blah blah, red text, all this weird stuff.
Right.
And that would not be
a red flag no matter what, saying, "Hey, you need to redo this."
Yeah.
Before it goes live.
Yeah. And we are, and when we add that, then we know if someone, like, say, there's people, a few million people paying us $5 a month for this profanity checker, and they say, yeah, it says could not scan the document properly, then we know, oh, that must mean something with the Google response changed.
Right.
We'd have like kind of a lead on how to fix that bug.
Absolutely, instead of just being dead in the water.
Yeah. So now we have all that, and for the grand finale, we just run read text. Because it has parentheses there, we know it's a method or a function. Right. And that is the same as running everything inside of our read text function. And it just so happens that our read text function runs the check profanity function, and it gets the contents of this file and checks them for profanity against Google. So, what does it look like? Well, let's try it out. I'm in my folder on my computer that has the script in it. So the way that you run Python scripts easily is just type in Python and then say the name of your file. So mine's checkprofanity.py for Python.
Yeah.
So I can just run that, and it says profanity alert. And it seems like it's working, but let's make sure. So right now I have a in the dark.
Yeah.
But what if I change that back to shot in the dark?
Yeah.
And I don't think we have anything. No, it looks clean
good
to me.
Yeah, looks good.
So theoretically, it should say. What should it say?
Say it's clear.
It should say this document has no curse words.
That's right.
Sweet. It works.
And it's also very, very argumentative. It's like this document has no curse words.
Yeah.
It's very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like.
It's very excited about that.
Yeah. And it's like that gives you the utmost of confidence, when emailing or, doing whatever, to say, okay, don't have to check myself.
Yeah.
I won't piss anybody off.
And you just one quick code.
Yeah.
Well, one quick command.
Yeah.
To bring up all that code.
That's the whole thing about coding, is like you write so much, but then you only have to write it once, and for the rest of your life, you just have one little
command.
One little command. Boom. Sweet. All right.
All right.
I think it's time for dinner.
Yep.